Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praises be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the world, and may He send His peace and blessings to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome back everyone to another episode, another session of Quranic Shorts brought to you by Beit Quran, where in every episode we will analyze, extract and learn some lessons from the stories of the prophets in the Quran. Alhamdulillah, in the previous two episodes we have been diving ourselves into the story of Nabi Yusuf alayhissalam as mentioned in the 12th chapter of the Quran, Surah Yusuf. In the past two episodes we have discussed two main topics, and both of them are related to family conflicts. Number one, the matter of preferences, okay, where a parent will prefer a child over the other, how to overcome it, and how does the story of Nabi Yusuf can teach us or inspire us to be better parents, to be better children. And in the last episode, we have discussed a verse from Surah Yusuf as well with regards to sibling rivalries. How can we overcome sibling rivalries, and that in any time or in any moment where you want to attain any form of success and happiness, you should never compromise other people's happiness. Inshallah, in today's episode of Quranic Shorts, we will be looking at verse number 15 of Surah Yusuf. Yes, we are still in Surah Yusuf. There are still a lot of verses left to be unpacked, inshallah. So if you have with you your Quran, your digital mushaf or your physical mushaf, let's look at verse number 15 of Surah Yusuf. قال الله تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty says, فَلَمَّا ذَهَبُوا بِهِ وَأَجْمَعُوا أَن يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Which means, so when they, the brothers of Yusuf, took Nabi Yusuf out and agreed upon themselves to put him into the bottom of the well, but we, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inspired to Nabi Yusuf, you will surely inform them someday about this affair of theirs while they do not perceive your identity. Now, in summary, what is this verse trying to tell us? Now, a little bit of context. We understand that the premise is that the siblings of Nabi Yusuf are jealous of him because they have an assumption that their father, Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam, preferred Nabi Yusuf over them. So because of this tough love, or because of this issue of preferences, they thought that the only way to solve this problem is to get rid of their brother, and that is by putting him in a well, by throwing him at the bottom of the well. Okay, so this is exactly the ayat is showing to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly showing to us, illustrating to us the plan that the siblings of Nabi Yusuf committed against Nabi Yusuf himself. Okay, by lying to their father, by taking Nabi Yusuf out to play, but in actual truth, they wanted to get rid of him by throwing him in a well. So in this verse itself, there are so many lessons that we can learn. Number one, and I think this is the most important part, which is in line with our theme about family in the past two episodes, and that is enemies in our lives, people who hate us, people who want to plot against us, can sometimes come from even our closest circles. And in this story of Nabi Yusuf, we can see that the one who is plotting against Nabi Yusuf is in fact his own blood and flesh, his own brothers. So do not be surprised if once in your lifetime that you are hated by your own family relatives, because this is something that is happening since the time of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, that enemies sometimes can come from even the closest of your circles, and in this case your own siblings. So it is not surprising that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might test you with a particular challenge in a way that your own family relative, whether it be your sibling, whether it be your cousin, where even it could be your own parents, who hates you, or maybe who is plotting against you, and maybe they are hurting you, maybe physically, emotionally, or even psychologically. Now this is a fact that we need to accept, that human beings are still human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created human beings differently. Some of them can overcome their jealousy, can overcome their internal desires, and become someone who is good and someone who is better with their family members. And there are some people who are also overcome by their own internal desires. They are defeated by shaitan's whispers, and at the end of the day they become enemies to ourselves. Okay, and in this case it could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you through your family members. Okay, and this is where we always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our prayers, outside of our prayers, every single day, that one of the things that we should ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to seek protection from our own family and relatives, lest they become enemies. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always safeguard our relationships in our family, so that we are, caring and loving amongst each other. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our family members from shaitan and his whispers. This is the first point that we want to reach from this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is illustrating to us that the brothers of Yusuf, they think that the only solution to solve their problem is getting rid of Nabi Yusuf. Now this goes on to point number 2 that we want to talk about, that we want to extract from this ayah. And that is, sometimes in our life, we think that whenever we face a particular problem, whether it be in our school, whether it be with our family members, whether it be in our workplace, sometimes we might think that the problem comes from somebody else, and that the only way for us to solve this problem is by getting rid of that person. Okay, we treat the person as an obstacle, so we treat the person as an obstacle, therefore we want to get rid of him. And by getting rid of him, we think that we have secured a solution. But we need to remember, sometimes, most of the time, that is not necessarily the case. Because whenever there's a problem, and whenever we are involved in it, especially whenever we are involved in it directly, it may be that one of the causes of the problems itself is our own nature, our own actions. So whenever we think about something, whenever we are facing a particular problem, always first introspect yourself. Always do not treat other people, do not think that other people are obstacles. Always think about, number 1, did I did something wrong? Number 2, did I did something that hurt other people? Number 3, is it because of my own actions that I affect this, or I created or caused this problem? Okay, and then if we, after our introspection, we find out that we have nothing to do with it, and maybe the problem lies in another person, okay, we still do not consider getting rid of him as a potential solution. Okay, in this story of Nabi Yusuf, in the verse number 15 here, we can see that the mentality of Yusuf's own siblings is that the only way for us to solve our problem, and the problem is that their father preferred Nabi Yusuf over them. In order to win the love of their father, they think that they need to get rid of Nabi Yusuf, and by getting rid of Nabi Yusuf, they will secure the love of their father. Now, logically speaking, are they going to be successful? Okay, maybe in that time when they were thinking about this, they think that this justifies whatever evil plot that they're trying to do. Okay, but after it, if we go and think back, if we introspect ourselves, okay, and think about what the siblings did, getting rid of a problem does not mean that they had secured a potential success. Because just because they had gotten rid of Nabi Yusuf does not mean that they had secured the love of their father. In fact, it could be because that they get rid of Nabi Yusuf, okay, they secured their father's anger. Similarly, in our own situation, maybe we are faced with a family conflict, a sibling rivalry, and that we also come to the same conclusion that, by destroying or hurting or getting rid of our family members is the solution for us to get whatever we want. In this case, the love of our own parents. Again, think about it. If we go and do that, if we get rid of an obstacle, do we think that we have secured a solution for our problem? Maybe the problem is not with them. Maybe the problem lies within us. So this is something for us to think and ponder several times before we actually act on something, especially if whatever we plan to do may hurt or offend somebody, especially if they are close relatives to us. Now, this highlights the main point that getting rid of an obstacle, getting rid of someone may sometimes not be the optimal solution, and that sometimes even maybe we ourselves are the cause of the problem itself. Okay? And lastly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the same ayah, in verse number 15, at the end of it, He said to Nabi Yusuf, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ. So we inspired to Nabi Yusuf, لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. You, O Nabi Yusuf, will surely inform your brothers someday about this affair while they do not know who you are. Now, this is very interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually giving a prophecy to Nabi Yusuf by telling him, one day you will tell your own brothers of whatever they have done to you, okay, in a manner where they themselves do not know who you are. Now, we will talk about this later, maybe in another future episode, regarding what happened in the future of Nabi Yusuf. But the point here is very clear. If you hurt somebody, if you offend someone, okay, it may be that in the future, the same person who you might have hurt, the person who you might have offended, it could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish us in ways which we cannot even imagine. Meaning, sometimes maybe now we are successful because of us hurting somebody else, and in the future, okay, we find out that our success is slowly decreasing, is slowly diminishing, until we find that we are in a state of sadness, we are in a state of stress and pressure by a lot of problems that we are facing. And then we see the person who we are hurting the most in the past, they are now achieving some form of success. This goes in line with what, a very famous saying, and what goes around comes around. Because sometimes you might do something bad towards other people, that same thing might be given to you back in the future. So be very careful of whatever we do. Always remember, every single day before you go to bed, introspect yourself. Have you hurt someone? Have you offended someone? Okay, is this someone your friend, your brother, your parents? If you did something bad to them, apologize quickly, make up to them. Try your best to reconcile, because at the end of the day, we don't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish us for the mistakes that we did in the past, when right now we have already repented. Okay, so reconciliation, seeking forgiveness, seeking an apology is very important in our social lives. So in summary, we have learned 3 main lessons from this ayah. Number 1, we see that enemies and people who are against us can come in many forms. Sometimes they can come from our own social circles, from our own close relatives. Number 2, getting rid of someone, getting rid of a particular obstacle does not actually cause a potential solution for your own problems. It could be that we ourselves are the cause of our own problems. So introspection and muhasabah is always needed. And number 3, what goes around comes around. Remember, if you do hurt somebody in the past, maybe in the future you will get what you sow. So it's very important for you to reconcile, seek apology, and try your best to do good to other people, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will repay your goodness in the future. Thank you for listening. I hope whatever has been discussed is beneficial to all of you. Inshallah, we will be looking at other verses from Surah Yusuf, a very beautiful and amazing surah. And I hope that whatever has been shared is beneficial. Inshallah, we'll be meeting in the next episode of Quranic Shorts. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.